Hi, my name's Gail Rabasca. I'm a senior, political science major, English minor. And this summer I had an internship stipend to work for the National Endowment for the Humanities in Washington, D.C. I'd first of all like to thank Drs. Osteen and McGlamry for all your work, helping me, helping the center. I really could not have done it without the guidance and the support a lot of different ways, but so the National Endowment for the Humanities, the NEH, is an independent grant-making agency. So it's one of the largest funders of humanities programs in the U.S. and funds different cultural institutions like museums, libraries, universities, historical societies, but it also funds individual scholars who want to do research. As I'm sure some of the faculty in the room may have applied in the past or received grants. So what my boss liked to say is, we fund that cool thing you like. One of them was the Perseus Project, which is, Dr. Taylor knows, is a digital library on antiquity sources. And I've used it in the past, did not know it was NEH. And the Walters Museum down the street also did a digitization project a few years back where they took a lot of like Islamic manuscripts and things like that to preserve them. And that was also through the NEH. And I specifically worked for congressional affairs, which most people I would tell that to would say, oh, so you were a lobbyist. I'd say, no, we educate, because we're not allowed to do that. And so I was a liaison between the NEH and Congress, and our job is basically to show how federal funding that's been appropriated to us is being used and impacting their constituents, and to make sure we keep getting the money. And so what does that look like? It takes a lot of different forms. So I had a lot of variety in my work, which was something I enjoyed. Some things we do to engage congressional staffers, who sort of actually are the ones who are running everything, are House recess events, which happen when the House is on recess and they are kind of looking for things to do. We step in and show them different programs. So one thing we did was a podcast fair where we fund a bunch of different humanities-based podcasts, and we like set up like in a room like this in the Kennedy room in the Capitol a bunch of different stations to see like this is what we're doing. Another thing we did was they just developed an app to show the history of the National Mall, and it's interactive, so if you go you can physically see on the map like, oh, this happened here, and we just were out there and had popsicles and invited all the staffers. Another thing we do is we represent the NEH, one of my jobs was to represent the NEH in congressional meetings. So a lot of times we would invite grantees to the Hill, and we would go to those meetings with them and just sort of represent and say, make sure they're saying the right, not trying to talk about gun control or something else, and also just thank them for their support. And so one of the things that the NEH does a lot of work with is veterans, for example. So we would take different veterans around to their representatives or senators and say, this is how we're using the funds you appropriated, thank you for your support. One thing I think they had was a poetry workshop for veterans with PTSD to help them work through that trauma in a unique way, which was really interesting, and they said it works really well, which is something I thought was really cool. Another thing we had was National History Day on the Hill, which is a national competition that I'm not sure if some of your high schools may have had it, where you have, it's sort of like a science fair for history projects, and you compete through a bunch of different levels, and if you make it all the way up to the national level, they come and we host them for the day because the NEH funds that, and take them around to watch the congressional proceedings or meet with their representatives, and it was just a fun day, and I got to know a lot about Minnesota through that. And so we did a lot of work aside from that, but those were the main things. This is just a cute little picture of myself and the other interns. So I also did a lot of fun things. I was there when the Capitals won the Stanley Cup for the first time, which was really exciting, and I was a hockey fan for a week for the first time in my life. And they let us leave work in the middle of the day and go to this big rally on the mall. Went to the congressional baseball game. We had special tours of the Capitol and museums. And then in general, I just had a deeper appreciation for the value of the humanities, and someone who's taking political science, English, classics courses, I thought I already did, but I was able to see how it can be used in really creative ways if you put them in the hands of the right people. And so that was something I really enjoyed, and it was nice to see another side of DC that wasn't within the walls of the Capitol building. So, thank you.